Britain's voters go to the polls in just a few days' time, with the opinion poll suggesting no major party will even come close to winning a majority, that has prompted a daily flood of bribes from politicians, from the housing market subsidies to tax-cutting promises to spending bonanzas on public services to promises to also cut the deficit, contradictory promises that just cannot become manifest, which most voters well understand, and why there has been so little shift in the opinion polls during the past 2 months of intense campaigning, as both Labour and the Conservatives, and even with Lib Dem support, remain well short of an overall majority. The opinion pollster seat forecasts average with the Conservatives on 278 seats, Labour 269, SNP 54 and the Lib Dems on 24, which means that the only workable outcome being for a Labour SNP government, which in my opinion would be a truly disastrous outcome for Britain, nearly as bad as if Scotland had voted for independence last September. May2015.com literally flip-flops between Labour and Conservatives from week to week within a tight 10-seat range of one another. The latest swing is in the Conservatives' favour, which given May 2015's track record will likely reverse in Labour's favour over the coming days, which therefore implies to expect little change from today's forecast by election day. Electoral calculus have consistently exhibited a strong bias towards Labour, which has been slowly eroding over time, that has now swung in the Conservatives' favour. The latest forecast also swings heavily towards the SNP by allocating a further 8 Labour seats to the SNP. Election forecast tends to consistently put the Conservatives in a clear seats lead, though the most recent data shows a narrowing in this Conservative lead, whilst the Guardian tends to exhibit a marginal advantage to the Conservatives within a 10-seat range. This implies that the Conservative seat range on election day will be between 274 and 279 seats. Overall, the opinion polls have been weakly trending in the Conservatives' favour for the past 2 weeks. Though unfortunately for the Tories, there are no signs of an acceleration from the current 278 average, that at best would trend towards 283 seats, whilst Labour is mostly flatlining, which implies little change from the current average of 269 seats. The real big story of 2015 is the SNP surge in Scotland, where all pollsters are converging towards a total annihilation of Labour in Scotland, with the SNP averaging 54 seats, and with Labour potentially losing all of their 41 seats. If the opinion polls trends do pan out, then the only workable majority will be Labour 269 plus SNP 54 for a 323-seat nationalist-driven weak Labour minority government, which implies that it now may be too late for the Conservatives to achieve critical mass of at least 294 seats. However, a detailed look at the constituency level election battles, such as at the Lib Dem leader's Sheffield Hallam seat, illustrate that the national opinion polls have a tendency to underestimate the number of seats the parties of government will actually win on election day. The latest Lord Ashcroft opinion poll for Sheffield Hallam shows that the Labour has managed to maintain a slender lead over the Lib Dem leader, as Nick Clegg fights a ferocious battle to prevent losing his seat to the Labour candidate Oliver Coppard, which if lost would scupper any hopes for a continuation of the Tory-led coalition, as without Nick Clegg the left of centre Lib Dems would veer towards Labour Party, even if it would result in a messy outcome that involves the Scottish nationalists. Whilst Labour has managed to cling on to a slender lead over the Lib Dems by 1% on 37% against 36%, however, this poll does show a trend where tactical voters are favouring the Lib Dem leader on a 2-to-1 margin, i.e. for every 1% Labour tends to add to its percentage share of the vote, then the Lib Dems add 2%, which is not so surprising given that out of the remaining 27% of other party voters, 23% are right of centre, whilst only 4% are left of centre, which leaves a huge pool for the Lib Dems to capitalise upon on election day, when the choice facing the Conservative and UKIP voters will be whether to lend their vote to Nick Clegg or see the Sheffield Hallam seat fall to Labour. Over the past 2 months, the Lib Dems have literally gone to war in terms of intensity of campaigning in the Sheffield Hallam constituency, which includes near weekly doorstepping of asking voters which local issues they most want addressed and who they are likely to vote for, which I'm sure translates into much intelligence gleaned on where individual resident voters stand. Even the Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg has been busy inviting local residents to Q&A meetings. The Lib Dems have been smart in picking up on a number of local issues that could reinforce their vote, such as the crisis in school places in the local area, resulting in issues such as the expansion of Greystone School currently underway, or the proposed expansion of Dobcroft Infant School that the school opposes and where some 500 parents and local residents have petitioned against to the Sheffield City Council and continue to fight ferociously against happening. Of course, if the child of a campaigning anti-Dobcroft expansion parent had been denied a place at their local school, then instead they would be out demonstrating in favour for expansion of places at the school.
This is what it's like living in Sheffield Hallam during the election campaign 2015. That's what you get stuffed through letterboxes.
Let's tie up the leaflets, see who's winning what. Sheffield Hallam. Okay, Lib Dems. Nick Clegg. One. One to Cleggy. Another one to Cleggy. Two. Another one, fairly Nick Clegg. Only the Lib Dems will give the NHS the money it needs. 3, another one, 4. This one's Lib Dems, yeah, 5. So Labour, we got Labour. Few of the Lib Dem broken promises. Got Labour's broken promises. And that's 1 to Labour and 5 to Lib Dem. Which way will Nick Clegg turn after the election? This is a bit strange. Who is this guy? Could be Conservative. There it is. On behalf of Oliver Cockle. That's Conservative. Well, the first Conservative. Ian Walker, who's he for? Conservative. Nick Clegg. Counting there, Nick Clegg. No, basically Nick Clegg. Another one, Lib Dems. Is wanting to own your home, any unreasonable dream. What's this one? Nick Clegg. Labour. Yeah, this is Labour. I don't know who she is though, she's not standing. It's Labour 2. Yeah, Lib Dems. Clearly, Lib Dems. Lib Dems clear. Parkhead, Tesco plans turned down. Tesco is going bust. No, that's not why it's not going ahead. Tesco going bust. Nothing to do with Lib Dems. No, you've not heard the news. That is Labour. Is that a candidate? Oliver Copley. Labour thing, isn't it? Oliver Copley. So this is Labour then. You're on the wrong pile. Nick Clegg, Lib Dems. John Horton, former Conservative candidate for Sheffield Hallam. What's this? It's a strange letter. Dear friends, I've been a lifelong Conservative and a candidate for Sheffield Hallam. This time I'm voting for Nick Clegg. A former Conservative candidate for Sheffield Hallam voting for Nick Clegg. Who's this by? Must be printed by Lib Dems. Published and promoted on behalf of Nick Clegg. That's Lib Dems. Ah, that's a fancy classy magazine. By Nick Clegg, by Lib Dems. Nick Clegg. Another one. Nick Clegg. Nick Clegg. Nick Clegg. Nick Clegg, the local champion for our NHS. Declared, oh, we've got a local issue. Dubcroft School, expansion plans put on hold. Yeah, well, problem with that is that there's a shortage of places at Dubcroft School, so that means catchment area children cannot get in. So what it is, instead of increasing the places there so everyone in the catchment gets an equal right to get a place at their local school, the parents already have their children in and teachers are compared to not expand the school, because of course they've got their children in, so to hell with the rest. We haven't. Selfish. Better not say the word, but you know what I mean. That's example of selfishness. Aha! We have a pimple-faced UKIP candidate leaflet. The first one, I'll put it there on the far right, or my left. Who's this Conservative? Ian Walker, looks like an accountant. It's good for money, good for business people. What's this? Anything mutual? Oh, no, not leaflet. Another Nick Clegg, doing the country walk. Yeah. Nick Clegg. There's another one of those. Who can beat Labour? It must be Nick Clegg. Okay, who's this one by? It is by Lib Dems. Nick Clegg, questions and answers in Ecclesall. Yeah, first time he's had one in 5 years. No, it's the last one, Nick Clegg. So, 1 UKIP, 1, 2, 3, 4 Labour, yeah, and 2 Conservative, and then we come to the Lib Dems. I can't read out, I lost now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28! And there you have it. The Lib Dems are blitzkrieg in Sheffield Hallam. But this is only one example. You know, the doorstepping every week. Up and down the walking. Could we have your vote? Could we allow your vote? Who would you vote for? Would you vote for Nick Clegg? Oh, Labour, no, don't vote Labour. Conservative, very bad. But you're in coalition with the Conservatives, yes we know, but not next time. They're definitely going on a complete all-out blitzkrieg, total war to win this constituency of Sheffield Hallam, as you can see by just one example, the leaflets.
Therefore, despite all of the negatives stacked up against the Lib Dems, such as the betrayal of students and their parents, against this, in the first instance, the Sheffield Hallam election is not one of between the Lib Dems and Labour. Instead, it is one of Nick Clegg, who is instantly recognisable by over 90% of the electorate, against Oliver Coppard, who will be lucky to achieve 10% recognition. Therefore, in line with my long-standing forecast that on May the 7th, voters, when presented with the ballot paper, will in surprisingly large numbers vote for Nick Clegg, resulting in a decisive majority of at least 5,000 votes. That is contrary to the current consensus and opinion polls that suggest a Labour victory in Sheffield Hallam is likely. And what is happening in Sheffield Hallam is taking place right across the UK in many Lib Dem and Conservative constituencies, where the parties of government will actually win far more seats on election day than the opinion polls suggest. Where instead of Sheffield Hallam being an election battle between Labour and the Lib Dems, instead the reality for many voters following 5 years of coalition government is not one of Labour fighting election battles against the Lib Dems or the Conservatives, but rather they are effectively battling against a coalition party, which means that in this general election we will witness tactical voting on a far greater scale amongst Lib Dems and Conservatives than we have saw at the 2010 general election, as coalition party voters support one another's parties, which implies that a continuation of the Conservative-led Lib Dem coalition is the most probable outcome. You can click to view my recent video analysis that covered the key drivers in Britain's housing crises, such as immigration, lack of new house building, population growth and demographics, and its impact on the election. The latest Halifax average house prices data released for March 2015 of 191.5k is showing a continuation of the bull market, after the pause of August to December 2014. House prices are currently showing a deviation of 4% against the forecast trend trajectory. In terms of the long-term trend forecast for a 55% rise in average UK house prices by the end of 2018, if the current deviation continued to persist, then this would result in a 15% reduction in the forecast outcome, to approximately a 40% rise by the end of 2018. House price momentum has picked up from February's plus 6.6% to 7.7% for March, though has missed the headline-grabbing new all-time high in average UK house prices just prior to election day, probably due to ongoing weakness in house prices in the southeast. Therefore, the Conservatives' mini-election boom appears to have failed to spike to a plus 10% inflation rate for election day, where my expectations were that it could have ranged to as high as plus 12%. That would have triggered an outright majority 30 seats inducing result, as my long-standing analysis of seats versus house prices forecast. The updated election seats trend graph suggests that the Conservatives are on target towards achieving a single digits outright majority, which is completely contrary to every opinion poll published this year, which, if it materializes, then I'm sure for election 2020 everyone will be staring at the house prices indices rather than the opinion polls, though, as is usually the case, that when the consensus becomes focused on a particular indicator, then that is when it usually stops working. Pulling all of the competing strands together of constituency level election battles favouring the Conservatives and Lib Dems, English fears of an SNP catastrophe, and allowing for opinion polls being skewed towards maximum uncertainty, probably so that the pollsters can better sell their services to the media, which thrives on such uncertainty, and of course the rising house prices wealth effect as being a focused economic indicator, that my view remains consistent for a continuation of the coalition government as per my forecast of 28th of February. The remaining balance of 558 seats, split according to the consensus view such as May2015.com, would result in Labour leading on 281 seats against Conservatives on about 277. However, this analysis suggests that the opinion polls are grossly underestimating the number of seats the Conservatives will actually win on May 7th, where there is even a chance for the Conservatives to win an outright majority, though probability favours another hung parliament. However, given the UKIP surge, it will be tough for the Conservatives to retain their current tally of 302 MPs, as I expect at least 3 will be lost to UKIP and many more lost to Labour, against which at least a handful will likely be gained from the Lib Dems, which therefore suggests that the Tories will achieve a seat total in the 290s. My forecast conclusion is for the Conservatives to win 296 seats at the May 7th general election and Labour second on 262 seats, and the full seats per political party breakdown as shown. Therefore, the most probable outcome is for a continuation of the condemned coalition government on 326 seats, i.e. Conservative 296 plus Lib Dem 30, where any shortfall would likely find support from the DUP's 8 seats. The alternative is for a truly messy Labour, Liberal, SNP supported chaotic government on about 327 seats, which in my opinion would be a truly disastrous outcome for Britain, nearly as bad as if Scotland had voted for independence last September. Another possibility is that should the Conservatives do better than forecast, i.e. secure over 300 seats, but still fail to win an overall majority, then they may choose to go it alone with the plan to work towards winning a May 2016 general election. The bottom line is that the opinion polls do not reflect how people will actually vote on May 7th. when they are faced with the stark choice of a steady as she goes condemn government or take a huge gamble on Ed Miliband's Labour Party. So in my opinion, several millions of voters will choose to play it safe with the condemned government, which thus is the most probable outcome.